All right. We are ready to go. What is this? Where are we? Episode 207. We're going to be talking about whatever happened at the Amex yesterday, the 6-goal thriller against Brentford. Craig, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. How are you? How's things?
Living the dream. We are here.
We're here in Joshless,
Joshless.
who is feeling quite under the weather. So I hope you feel better soon, Josh, if you're listening.
He got the dodgy Spurs lasagna.
It's going around, isn't it?
Yeah. So he. The good news is we've got a pretty heavy fixture list coming up here. So you'll only have to suffer a solo show from me and Craig probably on this one, and then we got another game on Wednesday I think we've got, and then we've got Spurs coming up as well. So it's all Josh is going to be back. Tuesday is the Bournemouth game. Christ, that's really quick.
It's too soon.
Too soon. Yeah. All right. And we're recording as of Sunday. So you're going to be absolutely sick of us. Anyway, there was a game yesterday, if you guys didn't watch. And it was how do you describe what happened for 95, 96 minutes, just in a high level summary? We'll obviously dig into the lineups. We'll talk through the game, but what did you walk away from that game thinking, Greg?
I know it's mental, right? And I think one for the neutrals is something that came about everywhere, right? It was more like this is a very fun game to watch, but not if you're a fan of either of these two sides. So it had a bit of everything. Frustrating for us to watch, and no doubt we'll get into that. But one for the neutrals, I think, is the motto shared around. But just carnage in places and just so predictable in others. So it's so hard really to nail down what even happened yesterday. But what are your thoughts? Like, if you could sum it up in a paraphrase.
I would say life shortening. My blood pressure during that game was not in a good place. We'll throw some stats out. If you haven't seen them, there's stats going around everywhere, obviously. But I'll just pull from Albion Analytics. I think this was ranked against all Premier League games in club history. Brighton recorded the most XG ever, 4.45. Most shots ever, 33. Most shots on target ever, 15. The second most big chances, 5. And the third most possession ever at 73%. Touches in opposition box of 49 and open play crosses of 28. And then I think you can add another one to that is 14 corners is also the joint most in a game. And we didn't win.
Yeah. You flip it on the other side. I mean, we can talk about our dominance, but at the same time, it talks some Brentford stats as well. 0 corners for Brentford. We had 1 goal kick in 96 minutes of football. And they had 38 clearances, which is, again, up there with the amount of shots that we had as well. One of those things, and we talk about this quite a lot, is that if you look at this game on paper and you look at a 3-3, you go, what on earth? And it was, the stats tell everything in this story, I think. It from my side is that you can see that we had a lot of the ball, but we'll get into it. But just an outrageous game to watch.
It felt endless. It felt endless.
Yeah, and typifies both teams, really. I think this is what Brentford do, and I think if you look at their stats across the season, and then you look at ours as well, it just felt like a very XG game, didn't it? But very strange. Very strange.
It's hard to really also summarize whether this was look, obviously the fact that we walk away from this game with a point is not to be sniffed at. This, to me, before we went into this game, I think probably we could all broadly agree that this was the most important game that we played this season, just of where we were both at in the table and what would happen if you win, lose, or draw this game. Losing this game would have been devastating, especially the way it played out, but it would have been devastating in terms of our ambitions and our aspirations for the rest of the season, especially if we dig in and talk more about European football. You suddenly lose to Brentford, They get the 3 points. You don't know the outcome of this Newcastle Man U game yet. I know you've got games in hand, but suddenly the table just doesn't look like it's properly on your side, and you've got the giants further down the table that are still there as well, right? Getting a draw means that, yes, we're disappointed broadly because you look at the stats and you go, how on earth did we not win this game? But you walk away from a point and you go, let's just hopefully that doesn't happen again, and we can move on with the season knowing it's not just exploded in our faces. That's how I'm feeling about it. I'm trying to draw a positive from it. I think the other big positive, we talked about this a lot, and this absolutely is down to De Zerbi, right? You go down at home 3 times, you lose and you've got to come back and rally 3 times. There is something about this group of players and this team and the camaraderie and togetherness that they have the willpower to do that, what we absolutely didn't see before. So I think there are, as annoyed as I was yesterday, we recorded this podcast straight after the 90 minutes. There would have been a relief after the goal, but a lot of annoyance about how it happened. But big positives you can take from this.
Yeah. And I agree with you on the games in hand, right? We're currently recording in between, I guess, the Newcastle Man United game. Those are the 2 teams that we have our games in hand with. And, they're up there alongside us and higher up. So we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. Those games in hand really don't mean anything until they're played. And if you take those out of the equation, this was one of the biggest games of the season, just to keep there and stay there. And we know what Brentford do. You know that they're probably going to do a number on us as well, because it's just one of those. They're up there with Fulham for me, in that they're probably some of the hardest teams to get results against for us, because against the top 6, quote unquote, we tend to be doing quite well nowadays. And then the lower teams, we're starting to get those results. It's those teams in and around us that we tend to really struggle with now. And we've seen that a couple of times this season.
Absolutely despise playing against him. Despise it.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get into that too. But yeah, and I think to the point of actually getting the result, I mean, you're talking a last minute equalizer, that feels good. And it's that mentality of not knowing when you're beaten. It is going to hold us in good stead for these next few games. Like, yeah, it's a point, and in hindsight, you look at the stats, we should have won the game in reality. But the fact that you've even been able to do that and come back 3 times to even sacrifice something, not only to get a point for yourselves, but to take 2 off Brentford, who are alongside us, is just as important. So that'll hold us for the next game as well. Against Bournemouth away from home, we need to go and win that. And I feel like that would have been a lot difficult if we just lost that game, given how dominant we were.
Oh, can you imagine? God, I cannot tell you how furious I'd have been if we hadn't have got that point. After all that, you lose 3-2. You just walk away so bitter. Let's channel some Josh here and put some chronology around this. Let's talk lineups. I mean, from a Brighton standpoint, what did you think? I mean, for me, after the Evan Ferguson news came out that he picked up a knock on international duty, there wasn't really any other thoughts about what the lineup was going to be, frankly, in my opinion. But you might think differently. And then Brentford lined up in just a hideous low block style, 9 people behind the ball, punt it up to Ivan Toney and Brian and Mbeumo, see what happens. And it turns out you scored 3 goals doing that. But what were your thoughts on the lineup?
Yeah, I think for us, it's about as good as it's going to get. I think you look at Matoma in Japan, and then you had Caicedo and Estepinian, Sarmiento all in Australia as well. Like, that's a tough flight back to come and make Premier League football with. So I was, say, pleasantly surprised that they were playing, but also a bit hesitant about that. Like, that's a lot. So I'm glad that they were both playing. Estepinian obviously came off after a bit. But yeah, I think that's as good as you can go with Welbeck up the top instead. Again, I keep looking at that bench week in, week out, and just seeing how young it is and inexperienced it is. Is that really, can you do any better given that Lamptey and Ferguson are out?
No.
It's really not too much there. And we can talk about ramifications of that. But yeah, that's as good as you're going to get. And from Brentford's side, everyone knows what they're about, and they have very good technical players in a very decisive system. It's always going to be tough for us.
Yeah, and they don't always play 3/5 at the back, Brentford, and this we talked about on the commentary. They pivot between doing that against what they will call, I guess, strong opposition where they just know that they're going to be absolutely dominated from a possession standpoint. They don't really seek out possession as it is. But they could have played the 4 at the back. I can't remember what they played in the reverse fixture, but I never like playing against teams that set up in this way. And we've talked about this a lot. You knew exactly what the recipe was from their standpoint. And the game started out in a fashion that you would have expected. We looked fairly electric early on. A couple of decent opportunities. I think the first came to Matoma, and there was an incredible tackle from Ethan Pinnock to block. I think it was a really good ball out from defense from Lewis Dunk, the unheralded hero of the long ball up top. But then fast forward, 9 minutes, 10 minutes in, and a rather innocuous throw-in is given to Brentford after they kind of pushed up a little bit and put the press on.
Yeah. And obviously we'll get onto set pieces and sort of crosses and our inability to be effective in any of those regions. But it's one of those, isn't it? You just get that sucker punch, and you could feel it anyway. Like, of course that was going to happen. I remember just in our chat alone, it was like, of course this is the way this game's going to go. It started well and had the ball. I think it's not going to be difficult against Brentford. Like you said, they don't seek to have possession. They seek to react to that and press accordingly. So the first 5-10 minutes, obviously you're going to be comfortable because we like having the ball. They don't necessarily want the ball. So it seemed very innocuous, like you said. But yeah, just a one-off throw in and a cross into the box, and we're just unable to deal with it. And all of a sudden, after 11 minutes, you're finding yourself 1-0 down, and you think, this is how it's going to go today.
Yeah, and I think the running theme, the frustration, I think De Zerbi must be absolutely, I don't know, not sleeping too well the next couple of nights after these, is that every single Brentford goal felt inexcusable defensively from our standpoint. Like, it felt like a full-on concentration lapse for each goal. Talked about set pieces and hinted at that, and I think I heard it thrown out that we are now officially the worst side in the league at defending set pieces.
I think just to add to that, I think we're the most inept at offensive set pieces.
Yeah, well, we saw that, didn't we? How many corners did we say we had? It was
14, I think it was.
400 or something. Yeah,
I think statistically, I think we're the worst in both departments, and that's
why is that?
That's not a coincidence. I mean, it's $1 million question. I'm sure the Zerbi would want the answer as well.
More than $1 million at this point. Yeah. Yeah. I just don't get it. I don't understand. I know we talked about this before, but I can't fathom how we can. I'm just looking at the stats again, and as you said, they had no corners. They had 6 throw-ins and 7 crosses. So 0 corners, 6 throw-ins, and 7 crosses. We had 14 corners, 15 throw-ins, and 25 crosses. And it's the same end result. Like, something has to happen in the summer, right? I don't even know who coaches us on set pieces, but something's got to give here, because we defensively, in terms of general gameplay, we're sound. I feel like we have this season. We've shown that we can, and even in this game, we can create goals, and it doesn't matter the scenario. They can line up with all these players in the box. We will find a way, and we found a way yesterday to score 3 goals against a side that tried to sit back and defend a lead 3 times, and they're good at it. So there's no problems there. If we could clean up this set piece thing, I know it's a big statement to make, but we're good elsewhere is what I'm trying to say. And it's such a shame that we can't figure that bit out.
Yeah, and I think the natural response online with other fans is like, clearly this is a coaching issue and bits and pieces. Yeah. I think my lukewarm take on that is that Lewis Dunk and Colwell should have scored from set pieces yesterday.
Yeah, Dunk especially.
So I think there's a bit there where it's like, okay, clearly it's not going our way, and let's not pretend that this is a purely De Zerbi issue. We've had issues with set pieces ever since Duffy got out of favour.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is an isolated incident with the whole De Zerbi appointment, etc. I just don't think we're very good at them. We haven't been good at them for a while. And there were chances where we could have scored from a set piece yesterday. And the dunk one obviously comes to the forefront of everyone's mind. But I think Colwill got up high as well. I mean, ended up climbing on Lewis. Well, he climbed on his own centre-back Lewis Dunk to try and get up there. I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but it's not
Surely
a foul.
I can't imagine there's anything in the rule book. You can't use your own player. Yeah, it's fine, isn't it?
But those are the chances where you're thinking, okay, if that goes our way, and all of a sudden the set piece talk just goes to now, doesn't it? Because you've suddenly got that monkey off your back and all of that lovely stuff.
Yeah.
So I do think part of it is, yes, we're inept offensively, and defensively we weren't and aren't very good at set pieces. I think some of the credit has to go to Brentford, who have made a knack of scoring from set pieces, not just against us, but from a lot of other teams, in that that's actually one of their focal points in how they score. So you put one of the best defensively set up for set pieces against the worst at defending them. You were bound to concede one or two yesterday from set pieces, and that's exactly what happened. Or at least from crosses. I mean, there was one from a defined set piece and one from our own throw-in, but the general sense is that you have 5 or 6 crosses and they score 3 goals, then clearly there's a parallel there.
And speaking of Daishian-esque football techniques that are employed by Brentford, we spend the next 10 minutes after that goal pummeling the Brentford area. Bunch of chances. Veltman's got a shot on him. Welbeck tries to make something happen. Solly March has one of his numerous shots that he just can't put in the corner yesterday. It just wasn't happening. And then, of course, as it's all planned, and we knew was going to happen, Jason Steele, route 1, direct ball over the top. Mitoma with just a utterly obscene finish. One touch lob.
Did you ever think he was going to miss that?
No. But then I've watched it back a number of times, and then I now look back and I'm like, you should have messed that up.
Yeah.
So it's like at the time, no, it's always going to score it. And then when I watch it, I'm like, no, you shouldn't have scored that.
It's that level of confidence in him at the moment. It's just like he's not going to miss. So as soon as you saw it go through, and that was one of the things that really stuck out to me. Not the fact that he has the ability to, but just there's no question in the matter. But I mean, Jason Steele's absolutely punched that straight up the middle. And I think Aaron Hickey's got no chance against essentially a sprinting contest against Mitoma. I think he was always going to lose.
No, that's not. Yeah, I hate to ask this question. Does Sanchez play that ball?
I think he does. I mean, I think he'd attempt it.
Yeah, it's going to go out for a throw, but he might get it a go.
But I think punching it straight down the middle. I think that would be on for Sanchez. You think about the third goal against Manchester United with Sanchez over to Cucurella last season.
Yes,
he has it in him. I think it's just. I don't want to get onto the goalkeeper conversation. It's a great assist from Jason Steele, and he's absolutely seen it. And what happens in the next 60 seconds is beknownst to him. But I think Sanchez has it in him. I just think he needs to realize that he's not the number one and he can't get complacent. And what Jason Steele's been doing in the last sort of 4 Premier League appearances shows that he has actual competition, and he probably needs to step up and be more consistent.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I mean, the fact that he could see that Brentford had stepped up a little bit and then just played that ball, just kudos to him. Just a really fantastic ball. And like we said, Matoma's just incredible. But we enjoyed ourselves for about 60 seconds or less after that goal. And we felt suddenly we're like, this is now ours. We've got back in the game. We're on the front foot. And then Sunday League team comes out at kickoff and forgets to defend.
Yeah. I don't know. Dunk didn't have his best game yesterday.
He did not.
And I think with someone as important as Dunk, as if he doesn't have a good game, I don't think a lot of other people have a good game either.
He was well out of position, and Colwill bit on as well and pushed up, and there was just too many gaps. It was a Veltman throw, and Mac just got beaten on a header, and it was just chaos.
Yeah. And the offside is obviously very hard to get if on the back of your own throw-in. So, you just think about the way you line up a throw-in, like it's going to be impossible for Dunk to get back into a line at that point. But yeah, and again, completely switching off, and just I will unfortunately give credit to Brentford in just being able to move it that quickly and get into a position where you can finish that. But again, it's just another sucker punch, something that is preventable. And I think it's to your point that the inexcusables with De Zerbi is that both of these goals were preventable in defending better or just taking care of the ball a little bit better. It's those lapses in concentration that Brentford do capitalize on. And again, it's not just against us, it's against everyone.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And at the same time, my overall summary of this is you cannot, with the aspirations that this club, this team, these fans have now, you cannot allow a team to come to you away from home, play 5 at the back, and have none of the ball, no real proper chances outside of just these weird quick hits, and score 3 goals. You cannot, you just can't let that happen. It's easy to say this as, some idiot sat somewhere talking about a performance, but it was, we have to rid some of these lapses of concentration, because with the potential outcome of this team, if we remove some of these issues and errors, is the sky's the limit, to use that cliche. Not long after this, we decided to give the neutrals some more bang for their buck on this one, and Solly March does some great work out on the wing, and is allowed to just get it on his left foot and put in a great ball into. If he'd have missed it, we'd have been screaming for Evan Ferguson and saying Danny Welbeck's done, get him out of the team. But great little header from Danny Welbeck, gets up.
Yeah, and we know that he can do that. Like, it's just, I think it's that consistency, isn't it? We're again just using those cliches, right? If he finishes every one of his chances, he wouldn't be playing for us. So
yeah,
there's those sort of bits, and I think we appreciate and understand what Welbeck brings to that team besides goals. But when he starts chipping in with these every other 3 games, then you start to see his worth a little bit more. March turned his defender inside out, like just with a quick shimmy. And with the confidence that he's playing with, he's able to put a cross in like that. And all of a sudden, you're back at 2-2, and you go, right, now the game started. And it's like you're like 28 minutes in, and you're like, okay, let's just restart. Let's just play a new game from here. And it all sort of weirded out from then.
It
just sort of just got to a point where I was like, well, this can't go on for 90 minutes. But yeah, deserve to be back in it again. Talking about set pieces and crosses and stuff, we did score one. So, that is a cross, and that's a header at the back post. So there's those sort of bits, but you're at 2-2 now, and you go, right, I said this 15 minutes ago, but let's kick on from here and try and take the lead.
Yeah, and the game for me, and I think you described it well, that it got weird. The game entered the twilight zone here for me, like just what felt like an endless, and we'll get on to what happens after half time, but at least up until half time, just a 15-minute period, and then just felt like forever of us knocking on the door and trying to make something happen. I actually was, and I know we just talked about Welbeck and performances in his goal. I thought Welbeck was broadly really good today. I know he didn't take his Bergkamp style chance in the first half where he tried to pirouette and go round. Not many can. But his one touch link up play was really impressive. And I know we would have liked to have had Evan Ferguson in this game, but the downside to having Evan Ferguson in this game is an 18-year-old that's playing in between 3 solid central defenders, getting crowded out. And even when he's got his size, yes, maybe he gets on the end of crosses, but so did Danny Welbeck. He got on one. You can't fault him. Doesn't have that same beautiful one-touch link-up play that Danny Welbeck has. Danny knows how to drop in deeper and then have Alexis push forward, have Caicedo come from deep, and Pascal Gross, and then create passing lanes. And we saw some of that. There were no shortage of chances. So I got to commend him for that. The other thing I'll say during this weird period of time is, our finishing obviously wasn't sublime, but I guess we should talk about Raya a little bit. He was very good.
He is very good, isn't he? And there's a reason why these top clubs are after him. Once his contract runs out, there's a reason why he's in the Spain squad alongside Sanchez. There's a reason he's displaced De Gea in that Spain squad. Like, he is very good. I think some of the saves, and I think you mentioned Solly earlier, just hitting it square in the middle.
We helped him out. We made him look good.
There's a couple of comfortable ones in there, but he made a couple of good saves as well, and was obviously very comfortable. He's just a good goalkeeper, isn't he? I think he's probably one of the best in the Premier League, and you show it. We helped him out a little bit with the stat padding, but I think there were a couple there where he's just done a really good job.
Couple of little distribution errors from him as well. So more to the point, when we have a go at our own keepers, let's not forget that even ones that we talk about enviously from other sides do make these silly mistakes as well. But yeah, like before the half hit, we saw chances that came in from, we had Matoma cut a ball in where Welbeck was so close to getting on the end of it, and he did just a little bit of a block there. We had the Levi Colwill elevator header. There was a bunch of chances there, and Mac had a nice shot as well where he danced around a couple of players and tried to put it in the top corner, and Raya saved. No shortage of chances, but you came into this at the end of the first half and you thought to yourself, okay, we're going to come out, De Zerbi's going to scream at them at halftime, and we're going to come out on fire, and let's go away and win this 4-2. And that did not happen.
Yeah, I thought you get to the half. I think they had a set piece right at the end of the first half, and you're going, please don't. Like,
yes,
let's not do this now. I thought, a bit of a hairdryer treatment at halftime, saying this isn't how we are. This isn't who we are and how we play. Sorry, and expecting us to come out all guns blazing, but you go and concede a set piece in a very good area, and next thing you know, like 2 minutes after the half, you go 3-2 down. Again, just preventable chances that you can defend. It's the back post, and the centre-back's put it in with his foot. So, it's a good cross in, but it shouldn't be at that height, at that position of the box. I think you should be dealing with that.
Absolutely reprehensible defending. And yeah, like you say, good ball in. All of the plaudits that are talked about, and I'll use Andy Naylor's stats here. Brentford has scored a league high 20 goals from set pieces this season, as you alluded to earlier. Brighton have conceded a league high proportion of their goals from set pieces. 15 of our 34 conceded goals this year, which is 44.1% for maths addicts, however you want to describe it, from set pieces. That is alarming. I know we just had this conversation, but that number shocks me. I tell you what, the thing I noticed from this goal is, good ball, good run. One of Estepinion's worst days at the office for me. He was a lot of mistakes in his game today. And maybe some of that is what you talked about with the travel and the international breaks, but he was a liability for me, and I wanted him off the pitch.
Yeah. I wasn't his best day at the office, and there could be a number of factors for that. I can't. Is the expectation of him being world class every game week like a little bit much? There's a few bits like that, but I think he's mostly to blame for that. I think he's just let. I think it was it Pinnock just run it back. Yeah. And should be dealing with that, or at least should be communicating for somebody else to deal with that. So yeah, not great. I feel like attacking wise, he also wasn't there either. No. I think sometimes a couple of these game weeks, if you're going to be super critical, he gets away with some of his defensive lapses because of how damn good he is attacking wise. And you can kind of forgive that a little bit because it balances out. But if you're not as effective in the attacking half and also have those a lapse in defense, I'm not saying they're consistent in any way. I'm just saying he has one in them. So does everyone. But it was on show yesterday, and it wasn't great. I think some of us might have been happy to see him come off towards the end of the game.
It was also weird. His stats are semi-misleading because he didn't actually tackle anyone. But funny enough, neither did Lewis Dunk or Levi Colwill. No tackles. There was no need to tackle anyone. Brentford never had the ball outside of the 3 goals. But broadly, like he had 90% pass accuracy, Estupinian, 4 key passes, 2 total shots, of which neither were on target. But eyeball test wise, it was a couple of big mistakes there.
And maybe we're being critical. I'm sure people will let us know if we are. But I feel like it was, for my own opinion, I think it's just more on show when he's not doing anything attacking.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, let's hope that that's the one and done, and that Bournemouth he can bring what he usually does, and we'll see a difference. But yeah, and let's not sit here and pretend that he's not the only one that had an off game. So I don't think we can single him out at all. When I think personally, like we said, Lewis Dunk didn't have the best game. I don't think Colwill did either. You'd be hard pressed to find a lot of people that did. But despite the dominance, and that's the most ridiculous thing that I'm now contradicting myself with, is like such a confident and dominating performance that you're left with, oh, actually, a couple of people didn't have a good game at all. And it may be because outside of the 3 goals, they didn't have to do a lot. And that might be the thing.
That's the tricky thing, though. But the thing that I feel like separates a good side from a side that is still on its way to being in that realm is there are games, and you've seen it with the best sides in footballing history. You think your Man Cities, your Barcelonas, your Spain teams of 10 years ago have 70+% possession of the ball, and the centre backs and the goalkeeper touch the ball 3 times in the game. That's okay, but it means that when they are called into action for the 1 or 2 counter attacks that invariably happen, or the set pieces that happen at some points, they need to be awake. And unfortunately, our players didn't have to do a lot defensively. And when they did, they screwed it up. And that's the difference. It sounds so, I don't know, arbitrary to say it, but they didn't have to do anything. But on a different day, we could have had a clean sheet here and we win the game comfortably 3-0. And that's the difference. And that can be the difference in your season. However, 60 minutes in, on a more positive note, we played some world-class football. And I don't know if you remember this little passage of play, but Moises Caicedo gets the ball. This is, peak De Zerbi stuff. Caicedo gets the ball very quickly in a decent spot, punts it to Welbeck. Welbeck, one touch, chest from McAllister, who then half volleys it through to Solly March, who ends up basically one-on-one with a defender pushing him. He isn't able to replicate what he did against, I think, Palace, right? Where he finishes that perfectly with his left foot and side foots it into the corner of the goal. He just smacks it kind of timidly, and Raya pulls off the save. To me, if we score that goal, we go on to win the game. It was an incredible little bit of movement there and one-touch passing from the team.
Yeah. I remember it now that you've sort of gone through it, and it's just a special play, isn't it? And it's something that we're capable of, and we know that we're capable of. It's becoming a lot more evident now. I think Solly March is too close to the goal to replicate the Palace and the Liverpool finish that he's sort of digging out now. But it's a good save as well. Like he's done everything that he could with it. You've got Ben Mee, trying to sort of scramble and push him wide. But it's just really good play. And I think on another day, he would have finished that. It's one of those. My thought is, who else would you, it sounds super strange to say, but who else would you want in that position? If it wasn't March.
Chance on the left-footed shot. Yeah.
It's cutting across the goalkeeper. Like I don't think I would choose a better person in that scenario. So it's one of those where it's, on another day that nestles in the bottom left-hand corner and you're laughing.
And he didn't have his shooting boots on, did he? I felt like March had so many shots, and they were down the middle or just slightly either side of the middle. And it was I'm not going to sit here and fault Solly March. He has been a revelation this year. There's no doubt about that. He put in a great ball for Danny Welbeck. We can't ask much more from Solly March than what he's giving already. It's just a shame he wasn't able to cap that move.
You got 8 shots, 4 on target. Like that's a much better Solly March that we had even 4 or 5 months ago. Getting 50% on target. I know we're sort of saying those need to be in the corner, but you can't expect all 8 of those to be in the corner, because otherwise he'll be up to Haaland levels, wouldn't he? So
70 minutes in, it goes back to what you were talking about. Estepinian, an assist or a goal contribution would have cured all ills, but he put in a great ball. Lewis Dunk, who else do you want on the end of a cross? And he forgets how to header.
Yeah. Inexcusable again. I think like you're talking a player of that quality and that caliber in a 5-yard header, free as a bird, and puts it over the bar. But he'll know that, and I think everyone knows that he needs to put that away, and that's one of those. But a set piece, a cross that comes in that could have easily been a goal and should have been a goal. It's
horrible. Don't watch it back. It's painful.
Yeah, and I won't. But one of those again where we're talking about the number of crosses we're putting in, the number of shots and stuff that we're having. That's one of the nailed on ones that should have been a goal for me. And it's if that goes in, you're talking about a relatively comfortable, as long as you don't give away any down set pieces, then you're talking, you can probably see that game out from there. And you're just sort of, I say see it out, as in like, you're going to go and find the winner at that point. But not to be. It was one of those days, I think, and you can look at the stats and you can torture yourself all week if you like. I'm very happy we've got a game.
Well, you can only torture yourself until Tuesday. Yeah,
I'm very happy it's only a couple of days, because otherwise, you'd be dwelling on this a little bit. But should have scored. He knows it. Everyone knows it.
Next time we'll see. About through the sort of 70, 80-minute mark, De Zerbi decides, look, we're 3-2 down at home to Brentford in a game we are absolutely dominating. We're going to shuffle the pack a bit. 72 minutes, he brings on Julio and Cisse for Veltman. Obviously, fairly attacking move, a little bit of movement around there to make sure that we don't have just a gap at right back. And then Brentford respond with a couple of subs, take off one of their 55 Danish players. And then Wissa comes on from Bremer, and they really settle in for that. Let's put everyone in the box so Brighton don't have any movement. And the game was so narrow. There was just no space. And we were trying to create space and we were trying to break it out to the wings. Matoma felt fairly anonymous in that second half. He just had nowhere to go. And we felt really constricted. And De Zerbi then decided, you know what, I'm sick of this. On comes Buonanotte 83 minutes in, and on comes folk legend and hero Dennis Undav for Danny Welbeck. And sort of the rest is history, because 87 minutes in, Pascal Gross pulls out the infamous Gross turn, puts a ball in. I think Matoma has a touch. The ball gets to Dennis Undav. You think he can't miss. There's no way he could miss. And he misses. And you think, surely that cannot be just Dennis Undav, or maybe it can be. And then we see the replay, and Aaron Hickey has, basically done an opposite end of the pitch from Maradona, and he knows it.
He's done the Superman, is what he's done. Yes. So, I think what he's trying to do, he's trying to throw his body, but he's obviously gone fist first, and just got in the way completely. But yeah, I was with you on the initial play. I was like, he's only gone and missed that, because the camera was right behind where Undav was. So I was like, there's no way he's missed that. But then on the replay, it's clear as day. And we won't talk about refereeing too much, but I don't know why it took that long.
We can have a 20-second indulgence on referee, because Michael Oliver was an absolute useless plum yesterday, in my opinion. And Brentford are very good about baiting the referee and rolling about and getting more time and getting free kicks. And he bought into all of it. And what were they? Why did it take them so long? Everyone in the stadium knew it was a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, everyone apart from clearly 4 people and someone sitting in a caravan somewhere.
Aaron Hickey was lying on the ground, defeated, knowing he'd handballed it and just waiting for the penalty. I think he thought the penalty would have been immediately given.
Yeah. I don't. The more I talk about it every week, I swear this is the one thing that raises my blood pressure over the actual game yesterday. It's outrageous just how shoddy the refereeing is at this level. It's the best league in the world, apparently. But for for the officiating and down the pyramid as well. I think it's not just a Premier League issue. I think throughout all of English football, there is sort of this epidemic of just inept refereeing. But yeah, we talk about it every week. I'm sure it's becoming quite dull to listen to. It just needs to get better. And Michael Oliver's top of that list when it just comes to, oh no. And it should have been given immediately. Everyone thought it was. I'm glad they came to the right decision. I don't know why it takes 3 minutes.
I was almost certain he was not going to give it, because after they took so long and before he strolled over to the monitor, I just thought, what's the dumbest thing they can do? And it would be just continue the game. But after taking all that time, thinking about it, looking at it, viewing it, seeing how egregious it was, why was he not sent off?
Yeah, that's the next thing. And then we talk about the second handball after that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that 20 seconds is elongated quite a lot. But just it is a red card, right? It is that clearly that's obstructing a goal scoring opportunity. And I mean, is it because it wasn't deliberate?
He's the last man as well as he's the last man.
I'm not even going to try and find a way out of it or just trying to find any sense of perspective. It's just the wrong decision. But yeah.
All right, well, we'll leave the refs alone because they know they're terrible. We know that everyone knows they're terrible. It's horrendous. However, Alexis McAllister steps up. A ton of pressure in that situation. We talked about how important this game is. It can define the rest of the season. If you walk away with no points and Brentford get 3, you look at the table and you go, oh my God, how have we cocked this up? And he just smashes the ball in the top right. And I'll tell you what, how good does it feel that you got a penalty taker that you feel confident in?
Ice cold, isn't he? And it's probably the best penalty he's taken for us today.
Yeah.
I think there is sometimes where he sort of goes into the corners or just smashes it high and down the middle. Like that's also a good opportunity. But yeah, side foot into the top corner, 90th minute to find a point against someone or a team that's in the same region as us. You imagine if we miss that again, we start talking about the.
I absolutely could imagine. Yes, I did imagine us missing it, but yeah.
God, I hate watching penalties when we take them, but I think I'm starting to become better with them now that we have McAllister taking them.
Well, I just think and for those of the listeners that are based in different countries or different nationalities, so that you have to excuse us here, I feel as an Englishman, we have been conditioned to fear the worst. The expectation when a penalty is taken by a player I care about and a team I care about, I assume it's going to miss.
Yeah. It's just PTSD from Euros of old and
PTSD from every tournament.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't like them. I think it's the pressure's a lot. I mean, everyone loves a penalty shootout and stuff, but if it's your own team, there's nothing more nerve-wracking.
I'd be the guy not looking, just looking the other way. That I wouldn't. I could never. The players that take penalties at like big tournaments, or even just so much respect to them, because I mean, you even go back, regardless of what you think about Gareth Southgate now, that man's career was defined by that penalty.
Yeah, I went through it in '96, wasn't it?
I remember the abuse he got, the pictures on the tabloids with his head in a bag and all this. Like, oh my God. Anyway, big digression. We did score. I know there was another silly handball shout and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter at this point. We walked away with a point in a game that, yes, we should have won, but at the same time, we could have very easily lost if it wasn't for that last minute situation. So you go, all right, let's never do that again. Let's forget about it. We got the point. The season's not over, and we move on to Bournemouth on Tuesday. I don't think we're going to agree on this one. Who was man of the match for you?
I think we are. I think the more you spoke about him, the more I thought it was him. I think there's slim pickings between probably, I would say, Welbeck or March is mine.
Yeah.
I think those are the two that kind of stood out to me. Matoma's finish is outrageous, right? And I think he deserves all the plaudits in the world. I think his goal and assist contribution at the moment and the amount of games that he's played for us is amazing, right? And I think we didn't mention, again, highest scoring Japanese player in the Premier League. We've still got 10 more games to go. Like, he's going to get a few more.
Seven in his last 13?
Mental.
We need a striker, don't we? We need a 1 and 2 striker. It's him.
With 4 or 5 assists in addition to those goals. Like, the guy's gold, right? And he's up there. I think for me, notable ones is probably Welbeck and March, but Caicedo's up there as well. I think just with what he's been doing, and again, we talk about the international travel, we talk about the hype around this guy now after January and bits and pieces, and he continues to, I guess, just attain this level of football that is so integral to what we do. Because if Dunk's having a bad game and Caicedo's not up to snuff, then I think we're in a very bad place. So for me, I don't know if I'm going to take Welbeck off your hands. I think I'd probably give it to Welbeck because he was effective. And I think he did well against what was essentially a back five in a very congested midfield. And I think he accommodated very well. But it's him or probably Caicedo for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you've said. And I think Caicedo is a great shout. 92.2% passing accuracy on 64 passes, put in a few crosses, some decent long balls, linked the play up really well. Like stats wise, none of these things like jump off the page at you. But again, they can be very misleading. We read off Estupinian's stat line and you'd think it was Caicedo's. Caicedo is just such a metronome in the team for us. The other one that I'll give a little hat tip to, not his greatest performance, but Pascal Gross did a lot of work yesterday. A lot of work. Now, of course, if it wasn't for his ball in at the end there, we don't get that penalty. And, you know, he continues to just be a stalwart in the side and just impressive always. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of respect to the players for coming back in that game. Defensively, as we've talked about, unimpressive performance all around. But the guys up top to come back and score 3 goals in a game where you were down 3 times is just, it speaks to the characters we've talked about. So, I think we could give it to a few different players.
Couple of shout outs. I think Enciso looked really good coming on.
Had a chance as well, didn't he?
Yeah. And commentary will rightly, here in the US at least, rightly calling out that he could have easily just gone down on over a couple of those challenges, but decided to ride them out. And that, whilst it's admirable, I don't know if in this day and age, whether it's the right or wrong thing to do. From a purist point of view, it's absolutely the right thing to do. Play on, and if you've got the ball, continue. It's just that football's weird, isn't it? Where you're sort of, I don't know, you're never going to ask someone to voluntarily go down, are you? It's this weird paradox where do you want him to ride that out and possibly get a chance? Or is it okay to settle for the set piece? It is a dodgy one. Well,
you get into stereotypically, it's more like a South American flair forward player that didn't go down under a challenge is fairly remarkable. But at the same time, like you talked about this yesterday, there's a wiliness with teams like Brentford, whereby that Ivan Toney definitely goes down, and Ivan Toney is 15 times the size of Julio Enciso. And could probably pick him up and lob him like a javelin. There's but at the same time, Brentford, that's how they score 3 goals when they're not in a game. And we don't have that. Like we've got an air of innocence with, I feel like, some of our players where we don't capitalize, like you say, on those situations. Again, you talked about this yesterday in the chat, and I'm torn with it because I watched the first half of Man U Newcastle, and Anthony was like rolling about like the guy had taken 2 bullets in each shoulder, and it's like, you absolute idiot. And Bruno Fernandes is just another horrendous example, and I'm glad in some ways that our players have a little bit more respect for themselves than to do that. So I'm torn.
Yeah, and I think from my heart-wise, I'm all about it, right? I like that we have that purity or that innocence, like you said, that there's this nicety to like, this is how football should be and how it should work. But ultimately, you're not playing the same game as everyone else in that respect, right? You go up against your Bruno Fernandes, your Antonys that seem to be sniped down on a regular basis. It's just one of those weird ones where we think this is how we all think football should be played, but it's not. And I guess the good thing with Enciso, maybe with this team, is that, and we've seen it before, we've been a nice team and a very good team for a while. I think we now have the talent to even just back it up now, where you don't go down under a challenge and then you still get the result that you had. And it almost makes that win even better. From, I guess, if you're looking at it in that sort of way, being able to win a football game in the right way rather than the dives and the flops and all of this sort of stuff, is that, there is a sense of purity in that respect.
Shades of Mourinho and the Spurs documentary. You're too nice. You need to be bastards. Yeah. At the same time, see where Spurs are at. So I guess Mourinho's fairly happy in Rome. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about quickly, because again, you're going to be sick of us soon because we're going to be discussing games every
other day.
David asked a good question in the YouTube chat here. Who do you rotate for Tuesday? And look, this goes back to what we have discussed endlessly at this point, is that the squad depth is tricky, especially now you are in the midst of lots and lots and lots of games happening. Let's also not forget that we've got a cup game to play at some point relatively soon. Do you make a switch? And I guess we don't necessarily know whether Evan Ferguson is going to be either able to play on Tuesday or able to play next Saturday or Sunday.
This sounds horrible, but is Webster injured?
Based on how he played the last couple of times, yes, but I don't think he is.
He wasn't in the squad, was he? Or was he?
No, he was on the bench.
Oh, he was.
It's just out of favour for Colwell.
Yeah, I don't see that changing.
No.
So I think unless Lamptey's fit, I think you probably rotate at right back. I think otherwise the main change. But can you drop Welbeck after yesterday? Can you?
Well, I think you can frame it as
a rotation.
You could frame it as a rotation. It also depends on. It depends on, I guess, how you look at the matchup versus Bournemouth and how you look at the matchup versus Spurs. Like, do you want to have that big body style of football with Evan Ferguson against either one of these teams, or would you rather have Welbeck's play? Because you could argue, maybe I'd rather see Evan Ferguson against Bournemouth and I want Danny Welbeck's maturity and experience against Spurs. Maybe, but that depends on the condition of them.
I agree with you. I think Ferguson can bully Bournemouth a lot more than it can Tottenham. I think that it makes sense to me. So I think to answer David's question, I think we bring in Ferguson. I don't think you can change anything else.
Bournemouth just came off a slightly weird April Fool's Day joke where they beat Fulham. And they've not really been particularly good at beating teams recently. The only other, obviously, game that they won in recent memory is against abject Liverpool. This is going to be a weird game. And I never like playing Bournemouth. Again, like some of the other, we talked about Brentford, we talked about Fulham, even though they're in fairly dire straits and they've conceded 55 goals. That is a league high concession
by about 8.
And they've only scored that. They have a minus 28 goal difference. That is worst in the league to Nottingham Forest minus 27. We should be winning this game, and then the focus would need to move to an important game against Spurs, and then the following week a very important game against Chelsea. I think, interestingly, your Spurs don't have a manager. Well, I guess they do, but it's not the same one. They also do not have a director of football currently. Chelsea, we don't know if they will have a manager by the time we play them on the 15th of April, given what's going down there at the moment. Increasing pressure.
Especially with a very prominent manager now out of work. That doesn't help either.
I'll tell you what. You know what would be really funny to me? Because I'm not sure what prominent manager you're alluding to, because there's a few. If Chelsea sack Tuchel to bring in Potter, for Bayern to fire Nagelsmann, to bring in Tuchel, to then Spurs to bring however way you want to spin it, for then Chelsea to bring in Nagelsmann, and then who does Spurs get? Like, it's just it's a weird scenario.
I we could probably spend a few bit on that. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I think that the Bournemouth game itself is going to be tricky. I put it in the realm of Brentford and Fulham for us. I feel like I'm never fully confident. But we should have enough quality to win that game. And I don't think I'll be surprising anyone by saying that, is that we should go there and get 3 points. Especially given what they've got 2 wins out of their 5, but they've lost the other 3. We should be doing some damage here, which makes me nervous. Naturally,
it's terrifying. We beat them 1-0 in the reverse fixture.
But even that again, we talk about blood pressure. Like even that game was just a bit of a torrid one to watch as a fan. So I feel like we're going to need something like that again. I think we're going to need a bit of magic or just this one defining moment.
Just to go back in history, if you want to think about head-to-heads, and probably a lot of listeners don't need this information. Last Premier League game at the Vitality was back in 2020. We got beaten 3-1. Game before that was an FA Cup third round where we beat them 3-1. But then if you go back to Premier League games at the Vitality, back in 2018, they beat us 2-0. A cup game, 1-0 they won. Premier League game in 2017, they beat us 2-1. And then a championship game back in 2014, they beat us 3-2. The Vitality is not a great place for us to go. So even though we laughed at their goals scored, goals conceded, and current situation, I agree with you. I don't love it. I don't love how this game comes so closely off the back of the fact that, as you've said, we just had a lot of international travel. The Bournemouth team does not have the same level of international travel as our players do. Lots of fixtures going on. It's an away game. We have no squad depth. It's going to be weird. Yeah.
And you have to remember 9 of those goals came in a weird 9-0 thrashing by Liverpool as well. So you can look at that minus 28 goal difference, but 9 of it was from one game. So there's a little bit of a weird bit there, but it doesn't detract from the fact that they're down there for a reason. We are capable of beating them. But like you said, not our favorite stomping ground, but we are very good away from home right now. And it feels strange to say that.
Here's a dumb question. If Ferguson's not ready to go, you give Dennison to have a go up top.
I think he's been very good off the bench. I don't.
Could be a nice confidence booster for him.
It could be, but is he going to give you what we need?
No.
I mean, I think you're talking about. I put Danny Welbeck under wiliness, expertise, or like just this veteran nature of knowing where to be and when to do it, because it's instinctive to him by this point. Evan's got this natural God-given talent where he just has that ability and that natural way of working. I think Dennis has a bit of both, but I don't know if it's the right time. I think the last 2 or 3 games we've seen him come off the bench. Grimsby's an anomaly, really. I mean, it's a League 2 side, so I'm not going to take that in. But the last couple of games he's come off the bench, he's made the difference. Like he won us that penalty. He comes in, makes a nuisance of himself. I feel like he's doing some damage off the bench for the last 10, 15 minutes. I don't know if this is the right game to give him that chance. I think we need to go there and win.
We do. I think the reason I bring it up is it goes back to the fact that we are going, if you like this or not, we are going to need Dennis and Dav in the running of this season.
Absolutely.
It doesn't get easier. And again, we know that we can't rely on Danny Welbeck's fitness. Evan Ferguson is an 18-year-old kid, despite the fact that he's built like Hercules. And when I talked about throwing smaller players, I think Evan Ferguson could probably lob the entire rest of the team about 20 miles down the road. It still doesn't mean he's invincible, as we know. He couldn't play it yesterday because of a knock. Dennis and Dav needs confidence, and he needs to feel like he can have more than 3 minutes at the end of a game to come on and make an impact. And that's the only and the reason I say Bournemouth is your next games are Spurs, Chelsea, Man City, Man United in the FA Cup. You do not play Dennis and Dav in those games. So unless you want a guy coming in completely cold to the run-in, the last month of the season, where you play your deal maker games against Forest, Wolves, Everton, so on and so forth, I don't know if I want a guy that hasn't got the minutes in. But anyway, who knows? I agree. We have to get the points at this against Bournemouth.
Yeah, it then comes to, I bring it onto a tactic front, is that Bournemouth are going to play with a low block. Do you want Undav playing against that? Or
will they at home, though? Or will they try and be a little more ambitious?
I don't think so. I mean, they know their strengths and they know that they can hit us on the counter attack, right? And they know that they can play for set pieces. So I feel like that's the main, I guess, deterrent or sort of way of playing against us at this point is settle the storm, let them have the ball. Just don't go for the bait, right? Just don't engage, and counter attack with what you have. I think Philip Billing's been very good the last few games, despite their sort of topsy-turvy nature. I think he's putting himself about a bit. There's a few counter-attacking options in that team. I feel like that's the way that they're going to play. And against that sort of low block, Undav is good, but is he as good as Welbeck and Ferguson with those one-touch link passing? Or is he someone that you play to at the end of a game where you are chasing a game because he has more space?
I think comparing Dennis Undav's one-touch passing capability to Danny Welbeck's is, I can't think of a more sort of unsuitable comparison.
But that proves my point as well.
Yeah, I really can't. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. And who knows with Bournemouth? It depends. So when they last couple of home games they played, when they played against Fulham, they played a 4-4-2 basically, or 4-5-1. And then against Man City, they went with a 5 at the back. So it depends whether they see us more we'll see how much they respect us, basically. If they see us in the Man City mold, or if they see us more in how we can take the game to them a little bit more. It's going to be an interesting one. They obviously they won against Fulham, so maybe they stick with the 4 at the back, and they got battered by Man City. So it very much depends. And I think against Liverpool they played a 4 at the back and won there as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if they played a 4 at the back. But yeah, not long to figure that out. We have got, as of recording, only 2.5 days until that game happens.
Yeah.
So it'll be exciting. Hopefully we can come out the back of this point that we've just got, pick up 3 against Bournemouth, and then we go into an interesting, very, very intriguing game against a Spurs side that is absolutely lost. And I don't even think you can define new manager bounce, because it's sort of the same manager, assistant manager that sort of managed them for a month.
Yeah,
before.
That probably shouldn't be their manager.
One of the weirdest situations I've seen unfold. You fire a manager, but keep his assistant.
His backroom staff.
Yes.
It's just him that's gone. And you then got the entire backroom staff, and you're like, right, you're the captain now. And you need to steer this team into the Champions League. And by the way, your director of football is also banned forever. So like it's such a weird basket case scenario. Very funny though.
You know what? Go on.
No, I was going to change the subject, so we'll continue with this.
Well, I'll say one last thing on this, is because I think we've got 2 games in hand on Spurs, who are currently in 4th. They've played 28 games. We've still played 26. There is a gap of 6 points, and we have a better goal difference. Spurs will go 3 games ahead of us in terms of game played, because they play tomorrow away to Everton. Who knows what they end up playing like at Goodison? Conceivably, if we do all right against Bournemouth and they don't do particularly well against Everton, and we can pick up a result against them next Saturday, we can leapfrog them into the
and that's where the Zabi's looking, right? That's the message. Is let's go and win at Bournemouth, and that Spurs game is then a big game in that psychologically being able to leapfrog one of these teams that are surefire, meant to be up there. That's what they're looking for, right? So
yeah, a weird look just came across my face, because as of record, I just realized.
You just saw the score?
I just saw the score, which is why the table changed on me. Because Spurs are now currently in 5th, because Newcastle just okay.
Well, bring it back onto. I was talking about away form, right? We've played 12 away games so far this season. We've only lost 3 of them. and that's pretty good.
That's very good.
We're up there, same points as Man United away from home. They've played 2 more away games than us. We're 5th in the table when it comes to away games. So that's on par, right, for where we want to be or are hoping to be. So let's see. It, like you said, it depends on the level of respect shown in the tactics. If they feel like they could go and take us, I feel like we have a better chance, really.
Yeah, come out with 4 at the back.
Yeah,
bring the game to us.
So I guess we'll see. But they're going to come thick and fast, right? You got one Tuesday, one Saturday. We're talking, on average, a game and a half a week now until we're done. It's going to be fast. For me, I'll end it Brighton wise, and I'm worried about our depth in the amount of games that we have coming up. Sarmiento out, Ferguson gets a small knock here and there. We know about Danny Welbeck's prior history. It just takes one big injury here, and a lot of it just sort of gets thrown.
Well, one small injury, honestly, but let's hope for the best there. And I think there's, regardless, this next week has the capability to really change the perspective on this entire season. In fact, the rest of this month is fairly.
It's a big month.
It's a really big month, especially with that semi-final against Man United, and based on what they're doing lately, you're not going to just punt that game. You are going to go all out, and I'm very jealous of the people that are going to go to Wembley for that game. But let's call it if you don't have anything else to add, Craig, just because we've got this game on Tuesday and we'll probably record then. But any other little bits to add on?
Yeah, I think that's it. We didn't touch on Hodgson being sort of back at the helm, and Aston Villa are now a couple of points behind us. They're really pushing for it with a win against Chelsea yesterday.
Well, and Brendan Rodgers is gone. So this is a big April. There's a lot of change going around. There's a lot of volatility, shall we say. That's probably the right word. And who knows? The teams that we go up against may not have a manager anymore. They might have a new director of football because the other one is banished from the realm. Those sort of things that it's just going to be such a topsy-turvy month. And I'm all for it. If it goes the way that we want it to go, it's going to be one of the best months. But I guess we'll see. All right, I agree. We'll come back to you. We're probably going to record after the game on Bournemouth. We've got to figure out time zones and things like that and see where Josh is at. But if we lose, we'll speak to you next Saturday after Spurs next Saturday. But hopefully we can squeeze in 2. So outside of that, thank you all for listening. I hope this has been a fun one, even without Josh. We're on to the Vitality.
Nice one. Thank you.
Cheers all.